Have you ever found yourself paralyzed by uncertainty, feeling the weight of others' gazes as an unbearable burden? That nagging sensation that you must justify every step, every word, every choice, even when no explanation is solicited? This constant hesitation, this meticulous analysis that prevents you from acting, is often mistaken for a character flaw, an intrinsic failing. However, the truth this material aims to unveil is deeper and, paradoxically, more liberating. It is not a failing of yours, but rather an intricate programming, an echo of defense mechanisms, and the pursuit of acceptance that have been shaped over time. This video serves as a detailed map, an essential guide for you to unravel the layers of this inner servant. An entity forged in the crucible of fear of rejection and the incessant search for external validation. We are talking about a behavioral pattern that, while it may have had useful origins at some point, today becomes a shackle, preventing the full blossoming of your potential. The journey we propose is an immersion into the origins of these patterns, exploring how past experiences, social interactions, and even cultural expectations may have conditioned your reactions and behaviors. Understanding the nature of this programming is the first step toward deconstruction and, consequently, toward reconstructing a more resilient and authentic mindset. It is crucial from the outset to demystify the notion that you are irremediably bound to these patterns. The beauty of the human mind lies in its plasticity, its capacity to learn, adapt, and fundamentally to reprogram itself. The hesitation that paralyzes you today can be supplanted by the clarity of action. The rumination that consumes you can give way to confident intuition. The promise here is not one of instantaneous cure, but of a process of self-discovery and empowerment where you will learn to identify the triggers that activate this inner servant and to develop effective strategies for neutralizing it. The paramount objective is to empower you to break free from the shackles of hesitation and the paralyzing analysis that so often alienate you from your goals and your very essence. The limiting belief that everything must be perfect before taking action is a cornerstone of this programming. However, the reality is that imperfect action is, in fact, the most potent antidote to this inertia. Every step taken, even if faltering, is an act of rebellion against fear, an affirmation of your capacity to advance. By embracing imperfection as a natural component of the growth process, you create space for learning, for experimentation, and ultimately, for progress. This material does not merely diagnose the problem, it offers a practical pathway to transformation, a roadmap so that you can, in fact, take the reins of your own development. The programming that constrains us often manifests as a fear of judgment, a compulsion to please, and an inability to establish healthy boundaries. We feel the pressure to always be polished, consistent, and unshakable, as if any misstep were a final verdict. This relentless pursuit of unattainable perfection exhausts us and distances us from our truth. The notion that confidence is innate, something you either possess or lack entirely, is a myth. Confidence is a skill that can be cultivated, a muscle that can be strengthened through proper training, and that training begins with a profound understanding of the mechanisms that sabotage it. Let's delve into the roots of this inner servant, so that together we can awaken the sovereign residing within you, ready to govern your own destiny with wisdom and authenticity. What is at stake is the deconstruction of a deeply ingrained behavioral pattern characterized by a lack of confidence, excessive hesitation, and a constant need for external validation, which frequently manifests as analysis paralysis or debilitating shyness. This phenomenon, far from being an inherent flaw in the individual, is presented as psychological programming, a set of conditioned responses learned throughout life. At the core of this proposal is the provision of a practical and comprehensible method to identify, understand, and, crucially, reprogram these tendencies. The objective is to empower individuals to overcome the fear of judgment, rejection, and the need for others' approval, enabling them to act with greater decisiveness and authenticity. In essence, This is a process of self-transformation focused on replacing a servant mentality, shaped by fear and dependence on external approval, with a sovereign mentality characterized by self-assurance, autonomy, and the capacity for self-determination. The central message is that true freedom and personal power reside in the ability to act, even in imperfection, and to manage one's own narrative and energy consciously and strategically. This material explores the idea that rejection should be viewed as an objective data point rather than a personal drama, and that self-sufficiency is a potent magnet, while excessive neediness repels. Self-discipline is presented not as a restriction, but as the pathway to freedom, forging character and enabling the construction of a personal empire, whatever that may signify for each individual. The proposed transformation is radical, moving from a state of reactivity and dependence to one of proactivity and self-governance, where one becomes the architect of their own destiny, rather than a puppet of circumstances or the opinions of others. Why? The fundamental motivation behind this exploration lies in the profound dissatisfaction and suffering that a lack of confidence and chronic hesitation can generate in people's lives. Many individuals feel trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage, unable to reach their full potential due to the fear of failure, of being judged, or of not being accepted. This condition not only limits personal and professional growth, but also affects the quality of relationships, mental health, and overall well-being. The purpose of this material is to offer a new and empowering perspective, that these behaviors are not immutable traits but rather learned patterns that can be dismantled and replaced. The importance of addressing this issue lies in the transformative impact that overcoming these limitations can have. By freeing people from these psychological chains, they gain the ability to act with greater assertiveness, express their ideas more clearly, pursue their goals with more determination, and live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Demystifying the notion that confidence is a gift reserved for a select few is crucial. The truth is that confidence is a cultivable skill, and understanding the mechanisms behind its absence is the first step toward developing it. The expected benefit is individual emancipation, the reclamation of personal power, and the capacity to consciously shape one's own reality. The proposal, therefore, aims to eradicate fear-induced procrastination, paralyzing overthinking, and dependence on external approval, promoting in their place deliberate action, resilience in the face of adversity, and emotional self-sufficiency. The belief is that by understanding and reprogramming the inner servant, the individual can awaken the sovereign that exists within, taking control of their life and building a future aligned with their true desires and values. Where the dynamics of distrust and hesitation that this material addresses are not confined to a specific geographical location or a particular physical setting. It is an intrinsically human experience that manifests across all spheres of life and in any social context. The where, therefore, refers to the psychological and social landscape in which these patterns operate. They emerge in everyday interactions, whether in work meetings, casual conversations with friends, public presentations, social media, or even during moments of introspection and self-assessment. The workplace, with its hierarchies and performance expectations, is a frequent stage for the manifestation of analysis paralysis and the fear of making mistakes. Similarly, social spheres, where comparison and the pursuit of acceptance are intense, can exacerbate the need for external validation and the difficulty in expressing dissenting opinions. Social media, in particular, has created a virtual where personal image performance and curation have become central, intensifying the pressure to project an idealized version of oneself and, consequently, the fear of exposure and judgment. Family and close friends also play a significant role, as it is in these environments that the first behavioral patterns and the initial experiences of acceptance or rejection are lived, shaping how the individual relates to their own self-worth. The where also extends to the inner space of the individual's mind. It is in the mind that programming solidifies, where self-critical thoughts gain momentum, and where the personal narrative is constructed or distorted. Understanding that these patterns manifest in multiple wheres, at work, in social life, in the virtual space, and fundamentally within one's own inner world, is essential for developing effective and personalized coping strategies. The importance of recognizing these diverse scenarios lies in the necessity of adapting approaches and reprogramming tools to each specific context, ensuring that the transformation is comprehensive and lasting, allowing the individual to feel more secure and confident in any situation they encounter. When the issue of a lack of confidence and the hesitation that this material seeks to address is perennial, but its manifestation and the opportune moment for its overcoming are crucial. The when refers not only to a specific timeline for implementing reprogramming strategies, but also to the trigger moments when these behavioral patterns become most evident and debilitating. Frequently, the need to act and the consequent hesitation intensify during periods of transition or in the face of significant opportunities, when starting a new project, pursuing a promotion, initiating a new relationship, or confronting an unexpected challenge. It is in these moments of potential growth and exposure that the inner servant tends to manifest most strongly, inducing paralyzing analysis and the fear of action. The ideal time to begin deconstructing these patterns is, without a doubt, the present. There is no right time in the future that guarantees success. The decision to embark on the journey of self-transformation must be made now. The relevance of the when lies in the urgency of no longer postponing one's personal fulfillment. Each day of hesitation is a day when potential remains dormant and limiting programming is strengthened. The proposal to act imperfectly, for example, is particularly relevant in moments of uncertainty, as it breaks the cycle of waiting for ideal conditions that never arrive. Discipline, presented as freedom, should be cultivated continuously, but its most potent application occurs when it is employed to overcome inertia and internal resistance. The management of energy and the cultivation of selective indifference are practices that should be incorporated into daily life, becoming habits that protect the individual at all times. The importance of time, therefore, lies not in a rigid schedule, but in the awareness that each instant is an opportunity to choose to act differently, to challenge old programming, and to build the desired new reality. The when
is now, and the constancy in applying new strategies is what will ensure long-term transformation, allowing the individual to become the architect of their destiny, one step at a time, in every opportune moment. The journey of deconstructing self-doubt and mental reprogramming involves a constellation of actors and beneficiaries, each occupying a distinct role in the process.
Foremost among these is the central protagonist, the individual actively seeking this transformation. This person bears the responsibility for acknowledging the existence of limiting patterns, committing to the change process, and implementing the proposed strategies. It is this individual who will directly experience the dividends of heightened self-assurance, sharper agency, and a life more congruent with their aspirations. Beyond the individual, there exists an implicit yet fundamental figure, the mentor or guide who furnishes the requisite knowledge and tools for this odyssey. Within this framework, the creator of this material, or the facilitator of its content, assumes this role, proffering the guidance and structure for the dismantling of the inner servant and the awakening of the sovereign. Nevertheless, the onus for execution and the internalization of learning rests squarely upon the individual. The community or target audience constitutes another significant cohort. These are individuals who share analogous experiences, seek comparable answers, and can forge a system of mutual support. Interaction with others embarking on the same path can serve as a potent catalyst for motivation and validation, reinforcing the notion that one is not isolated in this endeavor. In a broader sense, society at large indirectly benefits when individuals evolve into more self-assured, assertive, and capable contributors. Families, colleagues, and friends are also stakeholders, as shifts in the individual's behavior and attitude will inevitably ripple through their relationships. Thus, the who coalesces into a network of interdependence. The individual as the primary agent of their transformation, the guide as the purveyor of knowledge, and the community as both a support system and a witness to progress. Each of these who's plays a pivotal part in fostering a culture where self-confidence is esteemed and where individuals are emboldened to seize dominion over their personal narratives and destinies, thereby unlocking their fullest potential and becoming the true architects of their lives. How? The methodology for achieving the proposed transformation is based on a multifaceted approach, focusing on the identification and deconstruction of the psychological mechanisms that underpin a lack of confidence and hesitation. The process begins with awareness. The individual needs to be guided to recognize the thought and behavior patterns that limit them, understanding them not as flaws, but as learned programming. This involves guided introspection, self-observation, and the analysis of specific situations where hesitation and fear of rejection manifest. Subsequently, the mental reprogramming phase commences, utilizing techniques such as cognitive restructuring to challenge and replace limiting beliefs with more empowering thoughts. One of the cornerstones of this reprogramming is the adoption of imperfect action. Instead of waiting for ideal conditions or absolute certainty, the individual is encouraged to act even without all the answers, learning from the outcomes and adjusting course as needed. This helps to break the cycle of analysis paralysis and build momentum. Another fundamental strategy is the development of calculated silence. This does not mean avoiding communication, but rather learning to use silence strategically, allowing time to think, process information, and respond in a more thoughtful and confident manner, rather than reacting impulsively out of anxiety. Narrative control is also essential. It involves taking authorship of one's own story, redefining the meaning of past events, and shaping one's perception of oneself and the world. This includes learning to reframe rejection as data, not personal drama. Selective indifference is another crucial tool, teaching the individual to protect their energy by focusing it on goals and people who truly matter, and learning to deflect attention from irrelevant criticism or opinions. Self-sufficiency is cultivated through the practice of making independent decisions and finding internal validation, rather than relying excessively on external approval. Discipline is presented as the vehicle for this transformation, with the consistent practice of these strategies forging character and building self-confidence. Consequently, the process necessitates an ongoing commitment to self-improvement, the experimentation with novel methodologies, and the resilience to persist forward, even when confronted with setbacks, with the ultimate aim of becoming the architect of one's own reality and the sovereign of one's own existence. How much? The dimension of how much in this proposal refers to various quantifiable and qualitative aspects of the effort required for transformation. In terms of time, mental reprogramming and the cultivation of new habits are not instantaneous processes. While early signs of change may be perceived quickly with consistent application of techniques, consolidating a new mindset and overcoming deeply ingrained patterns can require weeks, months, or even years of continuous practice. There is no fixed deadline, but rather a commitment to an ongoing developmental process. Regarding effort, dedication is a key component. This implies investing daily time in practicing strategies, reflecting on one's own behaviors, and a willingness to step outside one's comfort zone. Effort is not just in terms of time invested, but also in terms of mental and emotional energy directed toward change. In relation to financial investment, the material may be offered for free or incur an associated cost, depending on the format: video, course, book, etc. However, the more significant how much here is the personal investment in oneself. Transformation demands intrinsic commitment, a genuine desire to change that transcends any monetary value. The scale of transformation varies for each individual. For some, it may signify a noticeable improvement in how they handle public speaking. For others, it may represent a radical shift in their career, relationships, or overall self-perception. The magnitude of the outcome is directly linked to the depth of commitment and the consistency of practice. The amount of knowledge to be assimilated is considerable, encompassing aspects of psychology, neuroscience, and personal development. The quantity of practice required to internalize these new skills is equally significant, as repetition and consistent application are essential for forming new neural connections and replacing old habits. In essence, the how much translates into a substantial investment of time, energy, and personal dedication, with the promise of an immeasurable return in the form of self-confidence, autonomy, and the ability to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life. The scale of personal investment is the primary determinant of the magnitude of the reward obtained. Discipline, far from being a mere constraint, functions as the veritable catalyst for personal freedom, immutably shaping character and paving the way for the construction of an empire, whatever its conception may be. By internalizing the imperative of a consistent routine, even when the initial motivation wanes, we forge an internal framework that sustains us. Consider the image of a sculptor who, day after day, with patience and precision, removes the excess from a rough stone to reveal the sublime form residing within. This methodical removal, this persistence in the face of inert matter, is what defines discipline. It is not about the absence of desire or the negation of will, but rather about the capacity to channel that energy constructively, even during moments of diminished inspiration. Hesitation, conversely, is the antithesis of this discipline. It is the paralysis that arises from excessive anticipation of obstacles, the fear of failing to meet projected expectations, or the mistaken belief that perfection is a prerequisite for progress. Furthermore, selective indifference, when practiced with discernment, does not equate to apathy, but rather to a strategic management of emotional and mental resources. Consider the predicament of a general amidst the clamor of battle who must focus their attention on crucial maneuvers and disregard peripheral noise that could sidetrack their purpose. This capacity to filter what is relevant and discard what is superfluous is the very essence of selective indifference. It shields us from absorbing unnecessary negative energies, whether they stem from unfounded criticism, unproductive comparisons, or external expectations that do not align with our own values. By cultivating this ability, we reserve our vital energy for that which truly propels our growth and well-being, thereby avoiding the depletion caused by indiscriminate absorption of our surroundings. However, rejection, when viewed as data rather than a personal drama, transforms into valuable feedback. Imagine a scientist who, after numerous experiments that failed to yield the expected outcome, doesn't give up, but instead analyzes the data from each attempt to refine their hypothesis and adjust their approach. Each failure becomes a piece of the puzzle, an indication of what doesn't work, guiding them toward the path that will eventually lead to discovery. Similarly, when rejection is perceived as information about compatibility, about the alignment of expectations, or about the necessity of honing a skill, it loses its power to emotionally destabilize us. Consequently, instead of withdrawing, we learn to recalibrate our strategy and move forward with greater clarity regarding what needs adjustment. Conversely, self-sufficiency acts as a potent magnet, drawing in healthier opportunities and relationships. Consider a robust, well-rooted tree that doesn't require constant pruning from others to maintain its shape and vitality. It attracts birds with its fruit and offers shade through its own inherent sturdiness. This genuine independence, this capacity to find satisfaction and purpose internally, emanates a confidence that is inherently alluring. Excessive neediness, on the other hand, projects an image of destitution, a dependence that often repels people and opportunities as it suggests a lack of a solid foundation and autonomy. Self-sufficiency, therefore, is not an act of isolation, but of inner fortification, creating a field of attraction for that which truly nourishes and elevates us. By interweaving the diverse facets of this exploration, we discern that the narrative which shapes us and frequently confines us within cycles of hesitation and the pursuit of approval is constructed upon foundations that, while perhaps having served a purpose at a particular juncture, now necessitate a profound reevaluation. The journey undertaken thus far invites us to look beyond the superficial manifestations of insecurity, delving into the layers of conditioning that define our reactions and choices. It is akin to observing a river that, once meandering and unpredictable, now seeks a straighter, more powerful course, sculpted by the force of the waters propelling it. This convergence of understandings prepares us for a new level of perception, wherein the tools for self-transformation become not only comprehensible, but intrinsically linked to our capacity to rewrite our own story. The realization that confidence is not an innate gift, but a cultivable skill unlocks a horizon of possibilities. The meticulous analysis that previously paralyzed us when reframed through the lens of self-compassion and deliberate action transforms into a catalyst for learning. The way we interpret rejection, the manner in which we manage our energy, and the very fabric of our internal dialogues converge on a crucial point: the tangible possibility of taking control. Reflecting on this journey thus far, we recognize that each insight, each tool discussed, acts as a thread that, when pulled, unravels a knot of a limiting pattern, allowing the tapestry of our existence to reweave itself in a more authentic and potent way. As we progress toward our final reflections, a clearer understanding of the path forward emerges with greater sharpness. The transition from passivity to proactivity, from reactivity to intentionality, is not a leap into the abyss, but a gradual yet steadfast movement, propelled by this newfound comprehension. The energy previously dissipated in anxiety and self-criticism can now be channeled into the active construction of our objectives. The way we perceive and interact with the world around us, and more importantly, with ourselves, is undergoing a profound recalibration. This convergence of knowledge points toward an outcome where sovereignty over one's own life ceases to be a distant ideal and becomes a tangible reality, built upon conscious decisions and the courage to act, even in the face of uncertainty. The anticipation now turns toward consolidating these learnings into transformative and enduring action. True mastery over oneself is not found in the absence of challenges, but in the capacity to navigate them with unwavering confidence, a confidence forged not in unattainable perfection, but in the courage of imperfect action. The inner servant, that intricate programming which has shackled us to fear and external validation, is dismantled not by an abrupt revolution, but by a continuous succession of conscious choices, each a deliberate step toward liberation. The hesitation that once paralyzed us yields to a calculated stillness, a strategic space where wisdom encounters the opportunity to manifest. The narrative that confined us, woven with threads of doubt and apprehension, is now rewritten by firm hands, yours, assuming authorship of your own journey. Selective indifference, far from being an invitation to apathy, is the art of safeguarding one's inner sanctuary, of cultivating a garden where only the seeds of one's growth flourish. By discerning what nourishes and what drains one's energy, you become the zealous guardian of your own well-being, allowing self-sufficiency to radiate, attracting not out of need, but through a genuine magnetism of fulfillment. Rejection, once a specter that haunted your steps, is now demystified as data, valuable information that, rather than halting your progress, guides you toward a path more aligned with your purpose. Each received no is an indication of what does not serve, freeing up space for the yeses that truly resonate with your essence. Discipline, therefore, emerges not as a burden, but as the purest expression of freedom. It is the freedom to choose action over inertia, clarity over confusion, and self-construction over passive waiting. This discipline is the mortar that cements character, the strength that shapes the resilient individual, capable of building their own empire, whatever its magnitude or nature. To become the architect of your destiny means embracing integral responsibility for every decision, for every step, for every thought. It means recognizing that transformative power resides in your own capacity to act, to learn, and to adapt. The inner servant may have been programmed by fear, but the sovereign, awakening within you, is the master of your own will, the conductor of your own existence. The true practice begins now.